Call to order the May 17, 2012 legislative meeting of the Borough Council. Please rise for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's take care of some administrative things first. Do I hear a motion for approval of the April 3, 2012 workshop meeting minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the workshop meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously. Do I hear a motion for approval of the April 19, 2012 council meeting minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, well, welcome everyone. I'm glad that you are here. First, I'd like to announce that we had executive session at 7 o'clock this evening. We discussed a litigation matter. And now, before we move over to public comment and privilege of the floor, first of all, is there a show of hands? How many people here wish to address council this evening on the 3rd Street issue? Okay, that's, I think, a manageable number, 4 or 5. So let me discuss a few things beforehand. We're going to proceed differently this evening than we normally do. We are going to take public comment on the 3rd Street project issue right after we get through the reports from the engineer, the solicitor, and the mayor. And then we'll, after we take public comment, we'll go straight to the council committee reports and specifically to the 3rd Street Dam motion. After we discuss the motion, and I anticipate that we will have discussion on the motion, and I expect that it will be a full discussion on the matter. And after we've taken our vote, we will then recess for a few minutes. And after we recess, we'll come back and we'll go back to the rest of the agenda. So basically what we're doing is we're doing the 3rd Street issue first, and then we'll come back and do the rest of the agenda. Those folks who wish to comment about or ask questions about the vote may do so at public comment at the end of the meeting. That way we're able to get through all the other things that are on the agenda. If there are other folks who have issues that they would like for us to address here tonight. I request that whatever the outcome tonight of the vote, that there be no looting, no expressions of pleasure or displeasure. We are local government. This is not competitive sports. And remember that we are all neighbors. We live in the same community, and we should treat each other with respect. Okay. Having said all that, public comment and privilege of the floor. If anyone wishes to approach now concerning public comment on the issue of the 3rd Street Dam, please do so at this time. Please identify who you are by name and address.
Dylan Atkins, 485 Kirk Lane. Well, I want to start, as I have before, by acknowledging all the difficulties associated with this. I know it's very tough for all of you. I hate to be in your shoes, I'll be candid about that. And I don't envy everything you have to go through in doing this in a public manner. I've attended a lot of these meetings, and I will say I've heard many valid points on both sides. You know, I don't want added traffic, I want added convenience. I like the beauty of the lake and the club. I like the beauty of the park. All of these make sense to me. How can we remove it when it affects private property? How can we pay for private property? The one thing I haven't heard, which I'm hoping goes on behind the scenes, which very much does disturb me, is I haven't heard any talk of money. And I think when you ask anyone, they'll have an opinion. They'll have an opinion, including me. I mean, I have an opinion on the issue. Obviously, you're probably sick of my face by now. But if you asked any of these people to pony up $500 to support their opinion, I bet you their opinion would change. You asked, are you married? Will you spend $1,000? Their opinion might change. Me? I support a family of 4. My share, $2,000. You're probably wondering, where are these numbers coming from? I take a look at it, and I looked at the census for Median. 5,500 people. I look at the cost of the bridge. Some of the proposals, $3.8 million. I go through, you subtract out those numbers, and you come up with a cost, but where I come up with the 500 is I figure we have to do something to fix it anyway. So I leave $1.25 million left over for removal or whatever else might be done. So the choices is a difference of around $2.75 million or $500 per person in town. Now you might say it's not just the borough. It's like me, Upper Providence. I have a stake. About 10 years ago, I used to live on Jackson Street. Maybe I'd heard of the 3rd Street Bridge. I couldn't swear I didn't. I really couldn't care less whether it came or went. My point is, if there's a bridge or a street in Wilkesboro, out in Pittsburgh, I'm never going to pay attention to it. The only place where I can pay my attention is this town. So I think we do have to look at it as a per capita basis. Otherwise, it's going to be like the bill at a restaurant when everybody splits it up. You find the guy who used to never get cheese on his hamburger because he was so cheap. All of a sudden, everybody's getting the shrimp cocktail, everybody's getting, the surf and turf, they're getting a dessert, a drink with every course. Next thing you know, the bill comes, and it's $100 a pop when he wouldn't have spent 10 bucks, right? My point is, again, you've probably heard me say this and you're sick of it, treat the taxpayer money with the respect you would treat your own. And I would ask, how many of you here would put $500 a head for your household behind this, that you feel that strongly about? And you can say, we don't pay all of that, but I think I kind of covered that by pointing it out. If, other people, if it comes from PennDOT, it comes from this, at state money, local money, wherever it is, somebody's picking it up and it all comes back to the taxpayer. And we can only be accountable for what we can pay attention to. Yeah, I could talk about overspending in Greece and all sorts of things and probably just get people annoyed, but that is where it goes. I mean, make no mistake, when you have overspending in government without the justification, that's when budgets explode. That's when problems resolve. And that may seem outlandish. Some people may roll their eyes. But 30 years ago, who would have thought the Soviet Union was going to collapse? 10 years ago, who would have thought Europe? Even 5 years ago, who would have thought Jersey, Wisconsin, all the states that are having financial problems were going to have the problems they have? Most people wouldn't have believed it. I'm just saying, let's start taking care of our money here and now on this issue. And if everybody believes it's a democratic process, and I will respect the opinion of our society, but if people really believe that it's worth that money, then I say we move forward. But I don't think the data I've seen really supports that. It seems like it's a toss-up at best. And in my family, $500 a person, I'm not spending $2,000 on a toss-up. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins, for your impassioned remarks. Does anyone else wish to come forward at this time to address the 3rd Street issue?
Letitia Jennings, 216 North Monroe Street. The one thing I heard only a little bit of was people discussed open space in a very general way, but no one discussed the fact that there is more and more research being done on open spaces, natural areas, and public health. And the other research that's being done is on exercise. And the park encourages people to exercise in a way that the gym just doesn't. First of all, you don't have to be assaulted by loud noise. And second of all, it has the added benefit of sunshine, which has definite effects on mood, and yet, despite all the benefits of open space weren't kind of, it was discussed in general, but there's a lot of public health benefits to open space, and it seems like we kind of glossed over that one.
Thank you, Ms. Chabon. Anyone else wish to come forward now to address council on the 3rd Street issue? Ms. Miller, I think, was on her way to the microphone first. Mr. Indor. All right, Mr. Indor.
Paul Indor, 339 West 4th Street. I think I can say that I've spent $500 a head in my family on this project. So you know what I mean. Thinking back to 9 months ago or whatever, I got that first letter from the borough last July announcing that we met. I went to the website and looked at the plan. I said, oh no, this can't be. And so at this point, I'm delighted for how far this project has come and how you all have handled it. I've mentioned my thoughts for the CAC process and that sort of thing. It also appears to me that you don't all act as one. You each have your own takes on this, from what I've observed and from what I've heard and the few of you I've talked to. And I think that's a good thing. That's the kind of way that a group decision will come together to be something much more than anyone could come up with. I'm very optimistic for the project. A way to save money is to make it smaller, to have it well designed. I've mentioned that before. I sent you all an email this afternoon that Mr. Smith had forwarded for the people in the audience and who hadn't gotten to it. I would like to ask that whatever goes on tonight, there are very few people in the community, just by numbers, who are here. If we could distribute some report, explanation, taking up of the issues, debunking of the myths, that sort of thing, from Borough Council. Many people are misinformed or uninformed on the issue. It will make it a lot easier for them to understand what you all have gone through in coming to your decisions. And when people, I think, realize that, oh, it's a little bit more complicated than just a 1A or 2A, as I said, they'll be a lot happier with the outcome. And so I do very definitely hope that you will be willing to make some initiative to informing the community, in particular those who didn't get the survey.
Thank you, Mr. Ador. Ms. Miller, I think it's now your turn.
Cindy Miller, I'm on Oakcrest Lane Media. I'm going to read a letter, and I will give you gentlemen each and ladies a copy of this. Actually, it's in my box. But I'm also going to give you what I referred to earlier as the promissory signs, as to when this work might begin. You may have to share, but I think you know the sign I'm talking about.
I
It's on
think
the
that
media
council
end.
is able and willing to share. Thank you.
For whatever reason, it's not at our end in Upper Providence anymore. We've seen this sign many times throughout the 16 years. I refer to it again as the promissory sign. There were many dates on this sign that indicated when this road was going to be constructed or construction begin. And as we stand here tonight, or I stand here tonight, and you folks sit here tonight, nothing's been done. I'm going to read a letter I made from Mr. Walt Omler, who lives on Orange Street. Walter Omler has lived at 926 North Orange Street since 1956. I own my future retirement home at 310 West 3rd Street, Media. The reason I say retirement is that Chief Marty will tell my son, Dad should not be driving someday. I will still be able to visit my friends at the courthouse and go to the Methodist Church on Sundays. You see, who would have thought that Orange Street would be a major route into Media, not just because of 3rd Street, but because of how our community has changed? Who remembers that only 8 blocks from the courthouse, the Omlers had sheep grazing along Orange Street and 1,000 chickens on the hills in 1956? I also mentioned following for change reason only. In 1970, Media Fire Company had an all-white personnel and non-female company. What was not, underlined, not important was proving that quality medical care during the day and fast service to parts of South Media. During the early 70s, someone signed the applications for the excluded groups and went to court to make change. And now look who makes up the members of the Media Fire Company today. The significant effort for those who opposed and those who wanted 3rd Street opened have set a poor direction for our community. I suggest the following. What if? Number 1, what if Upper Providence Council is convinced that their library to support Middletown Library where parking is great and less travel for many? Number 2, why should St. Mary Magdalene accept students from Nativity since their kids didn't have a pool table in the grand room overlooking a pool? Number 3, why not sell the Little League property at Springton Lake and build 70 houses purchased at $600,000 each to reduce our taxes? Number 4, let us keep the Media kids off the Rose Street Colts and keep the Upper Providence kids out of the Media Boys Club. I could go on, but I think I've made my point. Let us think about our community, pass the legal fees onto the library and our youth, and set an example of leadership to provide both the health, safety, and well-being for all of Rose Tree Media residents. Sincerely, Walter R. Unler, also known as someone. Earlier in the week, I made a blog on Media Patch, and the question posed was, do you think Borough Council has all the information it needs to make a decision? My answer was this. If the Rose Tree Media School Board, the township councils, and the neighboring communities of Upper Providence and Middletown, all capital letters, at their respective recent meetings unanimously, no dissenting vote or votes, in an unprecedented agreement to restore the road, what part of don't you understand is going on with Media Council? So to answer your question, yes, capital letters, they certainly have enough information, and my mantra has been, if it were a perfect world, we wouldn't even be taking the time or space to talk or write about this, as the road would be as it was, a road, uniting two communities with regards to emergency access, school busing issues, everybody's hometown. Meaning convenient shopping and dining access for those on the immediate opposite end in Upper Providence. I sincerely hope with all of my being that no one, again, in the immediate opposite end of said closed bridge in Upper Providence, for example, the new Toll Brothers development, any family or individual on 3rd Street and down to, say, Oakcrest, Highland, or any of the cul-de-sacs off of it, say down to Morgan, never in a life or death situation need an ambulance, or the DeRose Street Fire Company never needs backup fire equipment, because unlike what a few may think, seconds alone, minutes could make a difference. With the help of Google Map, the American Heart Association, and someone who knows more about emergency response time than I ever shall, it is 1.3 miles from the Media Firehouse to Highland Avenue and Orange, taking 4 minutes by car, a little longer by ambulance. It is 1.6 miles using North Orange down Kirk to the vicinity of Oakcrest, taking 5 minutes and a few tenths of a mile more, and more seconds, maybe a minute. To 3rd and the 50-plus new homes in the Toll Brothers development. If 3rd Street were open, it would be 7/10 of a mile from the firehouse to Kirk and Highland, and approximately 3 minutes. If, capital letters, a person is in cardiac death/arrest, which is different than a heart attack, and is without CPR, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, or oxygen, a patient begins to die in 4 to 6 minutes.
Ms. Miller,
Yes.
please, I apologize, but
No problem.
could you give us a sense of how long this letter is?
I have 1/2 of the page and a line on the next page.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Now I forgot where I left off. Okay, without CPR, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, or oxygen, a patient's brain begins to die in 4 to 6 minutes. If sudden cardiac death occurs outside the hospital setting, CPR must begin within 4 to 6 minutes, and advanced life support measures must begin within 8 to avoid brain death. This last sentence was taken from the American Heart Association website and fellow link. And so I say too, and subsequently asked Media Council, I have described to you my own personal experience with my then 86-year-old aunt waiting on an ambulance twice in one night, first making a trip to Borough at 5 p.m. after a bloody fall, which rendered 14 staples in her head, bringing her back home by car, only to have to call again at 9 p.m. when she collapsed on the second floor bathroom of our home. Riddle decided to keep her a week after that ER trip. I have used the do you want to divide a community by keeping the bridge/road closed. How much have you considered the overwhelming traffic on North Orange Street in the last 16 years? Have you polled them to see how they might feel if 3rd Street were open to alleviate some of that traffic? Please don't procrastinate any longer. Take the vote and vote to restore the road. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Does anyone else wish to come before council? Mr. Miller, you come at us in waves.
Sure.
Excellent.
David Miller, 981 Oakcrest Lane, Media for Providence. Last Sunday, my wife and a friend visited Frederick, Maryland, and met some very nice people in town. During the conversation, they asked, "Where are you from?" Answer, "Media Pair." "Oh, of course, we know where that is." And this happens more often than not with people that you meet out of state, out of town, and what have you. Cindy and I moved to Media 30 years ago, and although we actually live in Upper Providence, we considered ourselves to live in Media, and for sure we must, as our address, much like yours, is Media. We have always thought we were part of Media. Can we get that?
It's not me.
Oh, sorry. No problem.
It's the fire. They're permitted.
Oh, yeah, go for that. Now fast forward through the last few months. The 3rd Street Bridge has once again come to the front burner, so to speak. We are now getting the feeling that we in Upper Providence, that we are not part of the media community. We were not part of the survey by the CAC sent to some, not all of the folks that live in media. Also, it has come to our attention that some of your council members or family have implied that if you actually lived in media, you would see our way. Also, in the new Toll Brothers community, the Woodlands at Ridley Creek, some seem ambivalent to the fact that 3rd Street Bridge ever existed and do not feel that they are part of media as well. I think it is time for all of us to get together as a whole community, act like adults, and repair the damaged bridge, and especially the community, and make it what it used to be, media in everybody's hometown.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to come forward? Yes, please.
Members of council, mayor.
You'll need to identify yourself by name and address first.
Again, Christopher Ramos. I'm actually going to be the future of media. I'm currently building a home on Kirk Lane, 545 Kirk Lane, across from Glen Providence Park, and I wanted to address council, mayor, woman. As the future of media, I've had a moment to be able to look at some of the websites you have, look at some of the documentation with specifically the issue concerning the 3rd Street Bridge. I've actually been involved already, got myself involved with different community Glen Providence Park group, and I want to give you this thought. I haven't had time to look at everything, but I think that what I've looked at, you have a huge responsibility. It's been probably a tough task for each of you to sit and really look at this. I think the point that I want to make with you is to keep in mind to do what's best for the community. I consider that a really important thing because I'm going to be a member of this community. Secondly, I think you need to look at the fiscal issue here. It's monumental. And I really think that you need to think of being responsible, be very responsible with the financial issue concerning the 3rd Street project, concerning the economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to come forward?
I'm Holly Hoffman, 502 West Front Street. I would love to hear about the research you have done or how you've looked into alternate possibilities for designing this project. Because the way I understand it, you have a chance to design this differently from what it started out to be 15 years ago. And I really would love to hear how you've thought about that. And I think we all want to hear how you are going to come to your decision, taking into account what you've heard from the people of media. Everybody has strong feelings, and there's a lot to take into consideration. And I'd love to hear how you've considered. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll reply briefly. Tonight's motion is not about the design of the project. Tonight's motion is about giving PennDOT a direction for the project, which they've asked from us. So I do not expect that you're going to hear tonight any discussion about a design to the project. That'll have to come at a later date. Does anyone else wish to come forward at this time? Okay. Sure, Mr. Gibson.
John Gibson, Chief of Media Fire Company. I've heard everybody's views regarding the park and whatnot, which I respect from growing up and playing in a park for many years, a long time ago. What I'm going to discuss is a life safety issue involving the whole project, especially the area down around Glen Providence Park. Our fire company, the way we run is we have 4 fire companies coming on building responses. One of those fire companies happens to be Borough Street Fire Company. It would be very much faster for them to come straight down Kirk Lane, make a left onto 3rd Street, to come down to the development on Park's Edge, the houses on West Street, or anything else in that neighborhood. They are on every building fire in the borough median. For them to, I clocked it, it's 3/10 of a mile shorter for them to come in that way instead of them coming down Kirk to Orange, Orange Street through town, and then down 3rd Street. I would ask that the council take that into account, the life safety issue, both fire and EMS wise, when making your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Kavanaugh.
Paul Kavanaugh, 24 West 5th Street. I've heard people talk about the financial aspect of this, and I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. From what I understand at the moment, Media Borough has received funds from either the government or the state at no cost to any borough taxpayer to fix 3rd Street. An agreement was reached where Media Borough was going to use these funds at no cost to the borough taxpayers to complete the project, at which point Broomall's Lake in the county of Delaware were going to be responsible for any forward-going financials in regards to the dam, and Media would be responsible for the road surface.
No, please, Mr. Davidson.
Thanks for your question, Paul. The answer to that is basically we've received a grant from the state for 80% match for this project funds. We have not received any actual dollars. Actually, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong here.
Just the design.
We've received was basically design reimbursements for the project of the work, progress of the work up till now. We've also received a $650,000 RCAP grant from Senator Pileggi, which was secured, I believe, by the previous council, which was, I believe, signed by President Hall in April of this year. There are a variety of issues in terms of getting that funding. We have not received one penny from that RCAP grant, and it is my belief that we will have to probably go back to the state in order to get that funding secured. So essentially at this point, what we've received from the state is a portion of the design fees up until now, and until this project is at construction-ready phase, which is the 3rd phase of the project, actually, sorry, the 2nd phase. There's basically going to be 2 phases, for the dam project, there'll be 3 phases. We are currently in the, right now we could say we're in the permitting design phase. DEP, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, has a checklist of about 23 items which have to be fulfilled before they will approve this project. Part of that, there will be some financial issues for the lake as well as for the borough. Once we get that approved, we go to the construction phase. And at that point, they sign on the dotted line and we start receiving funds from the state and the RCAP grant at that point.
Okay, so if all of that follows through, it will be fully funded by the state and the grid.
That is correct, but what it is state is an 80% match.
20% match, or 80%?
Sorry, the state is funding 80% of this, which means 20% is the responsibility of the borough.
Which is covered by a grant, we think,
Well,
at this time.
let me just, I want to be clear about this. The cost of the project as of today, I believe the latest quotes were about $3.5 million. Our engineers stage there's a 5% increase in project cost per year. It's just it's just a standard increase per year. So if you do that, I guess that was for 2012. According to what PennDOT says, we are slated for 2015, which means the total cost in 2015 will be around 3.7. That is pretty much right at the threshold, if you can imagine. You take 650 and do the math, right at the threshold where it will start to cost some money to taxpayers immediately.
So it could cost some if it gets to 2015 threshold. But if we lose the money from the state, the 80%, it's going to cost a lot.
That is correct. So
Okay.
it is, okay. And let me just add one other thing, which is, actually, I don't think that's, I have another statement I'll make later, which will clarify a lot of this stuff. Thank you.
All right,
I just have one.
we have an additional taker.
Just one, yeah.
Please come
It's about
forward.
the financial.
Please come to the need to
My
come
name
to
is
the.
Judy Allen. I
There
live
we
at
go.
112 West 7th Street, Media. When 3rd Street Bridge, 3rd Street was decommissioned, Senator Bell was our local representative. Senator Bell got the money for Third Street.
I think with the assistance of Representative Ryan, as I recall.
That could be true. I happened to call him on the phone and thank him for helping media get this legacy or largesse. And he up and died. Now, there was a bunch of money. What happened to it? Everyone I know that has been to my home, I've always asked, where is the money? And it has always been reported to me, it is in escrow. So we've had this, well, you weren't here then. You have not lived in media long enough to know. The money was there. Well, I'm just telling you.
Judy,
Yes.
I've been here for 35 years, served when this first started, and
And
we've never, I mean,
what
I
happened to the
can't,
money
we've
that-
never had the money in escrow. The money's
Why
getting
was-
here.
I'm not making this up.
I'm just trying to
The
explain
people
to you.
on council, on,
Rather,
Town
rather,
council?
rather than engage in an argument, perhaps.
no, I don't want to, I just want to know where that money went to.
I don't think the money went anywhere. I don't think it ever was in our hands, but we can turn to Mr. Smith and ask him, Mr. Smith, have we ever had any of this money in our hands?
No, essentially, the Borough Council was approved for grant funding, and the way it works is the money from the state comes in funding cycles. So the first step was Borough Council entered into a design reimbursement agreement. So there have been a couple of subsequent updates to it, but the long and the short of it is right now, the agreement is for the design phase of the project at about $570,000. 80% of that is coming from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and it's on a reimbursement program. So in other words, the borough expends the funds, fronts the money, submits a reimbursement request, and then usually a month after that we'll receive the funds. The only money currently that the borough has in escrow is, I believe it's either 2010 or 2011, but the County of Delaware provided the Borough Council with a check in the amount of $75,000. Borough Council directed that those funds be put into escrow, so that's, right now, they're the only funds for the project that are being held in escrow.
And we've had them for since 2010.
I believe
Approximately
2010 or 11, I don't recall.
All right, I think that we've got that sorted a bit. Anyone else wish to come forward and address council at this time on the Third Street project issue? All right, there are no further takers, so I'm going to change up my little change-up that I gave. I suggested that we would go to the engineers, solicitors, and mayor's report before we headed into the motion. But rather than doing that, I think we'll go straight to the motion itself. Now, I'd like to make a few comments, direct them to council. I'd like to thank all of council for working very, very hard on this. I know that some folks out there believe that this council has been sitting on this for 16 years. What I can tell you is that this council has been seated since January. And in over 4.5 months, we have commissioned a Citizens Advisory Committee, which was approved by previous council, but was not formed under previous council. And we have also worked very hard towards answering the question that we're here to ask tonight. What direction are we going in? That's what PennDOT's question is. What direction, not design, what direction are we going in? That question was posed to us, I believe, this past November. It was left to this council to address all those issues. And I think it's remarkable that with the assistance, with the remarkable assistance of the Citizens Advisory Committee, that we have done so much over 4.5 months. We've rolled up our sleeves and we really worked hard at this, and I commend everybody on council. I commend our solicitor, I commend our engineer, the mayor. I'm sounding like this is the Academy Award, and certainly, last but not least, Mr. Smith and all of his staff. This has been something that we've worked very, very hard on. So, having said all that, it's almost going to seem anticlimactic, but we're going to get to a motion tonight. I am going to ask, as a representative of the Third Street Project Committee, Monica Report, if she will deliver the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay. I move that the Borough of Media notify the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation in writing on May 18, 2012, that the direction of the Third Street project is as follows. Consistent with the stipulation and order dated May 26, 2011, and entered on the docket in the matter of Borough of Media versus County of Delaware, and the Media Swimming and Rowing Club. The existing 3rd Street dam is to be replaced with another dam structure that has both a vehicular component and a pedestrian component.
Is that your
And so
motion?
is my motion.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second that motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a statement about this, please.
Mr. Davidson?
And I've asked council to bear with me. I've got a couple of pages here I'd like to get through. And to be honest, I had asked this meeting tonight to actually speak before public comment to give some more information to the public about a lot of, I think, what I would consider misconceptions about this project. But unfortunately, the rest of council was not in favor of that particular course of action. So I will make the statement now as we move forward. First of all, regarding the stipulation, if I was presented with this document today, I would not be in favor of it. It contains no protections whatsoever for any interest of the borough and fails to resolve the issue of ownership, which is what this court case was about. It is my opinion the stipulation signed by Media Borough has some serious disadvantages to the borough in both the short term and the long term. For one, we as your representatives are compelled to build the dam despite the majority of stakeholders surveyed by the CAC who showed a preference for dam removal. In addition, if PennDOT funding is cut, politics change within the state level, or if the grant monies just suddenly becomes unavailable, we will still be required to pay $3.7 million of Media Borough taxpayers' money to replace that dam, even if the dam were breached today and had a catastrophic failure, we would still be required to replace the dam. The stipulation only allows making changes to the design with the approval of all 3 parties, which effectively means that any change residents may request of us is up to Broomall's Lake and the county to approve. The county, to their credit, has remained neutral on any request we made of them. Finally, to be clear to everyone, the stipulation does not solve the issue of ownership. Our solicitor and special counsel have confirmed this to us on multiple occasions. We will be building a $3.7 million dam which nobody owns, and leaves Media Borough and our children and future generations on the hook and open to legal lawsuits in the future. To me, it is irresponsible to move forward without solving this issue, and I believe we are kicking the can down the road for another generation to deal with. I would like to thank all the members of the CAC who worked so diligently on the report for Borough Council on the 3rd Street project. What that report said to me, that there was a majority of every single group interviewed that showed a preference for dam removal. As I said in March, I was elected to represent the interests of the borough, and I will fight for what residents want. And while that survey provided one facet of this decision, the other factors which I outline now also contributed to that decision. The CAC provided a top-notch report, which included a section regarding questions that Borough Council should consider. As respect for their work, I would like to take the time to address each one of those. First issue was whether we should, regarding the legal liability of the stipulation. As I just said, the answer is that Media Borough is exposed to long-term liability in terms of ownership. The second issue was about costs of this project to taxpayers, and this will also address Mr. Dillon's remark previously. We are unable to spend significantly fewer taxpayer dollars on this project if we were to follow residents' desires and spend approximately $1.5 million of PennDOT money for dam removal and stream restoration, but most likely we'll spend upwards of $3.5 to $4 million to rebuild a high-hazard dam. Many will say that this isn't our money, but they're lying. We all pay state taxes, and we all benefit from our roads. Pennsylvania, unfortunately, ranks lowest in the country for bridge safety overall. That's not dam safety, that's bridge safety. That means that effectively $2 million could be sent towards another bridge, which we are going to be using for this dam. However, we are bound by the court order to move forward with dam rebuilding. The third question they asked us to think about is conveying the cost information of this project to Broomall's Lake and Delaware County. I believe that Broomall's Lake and the county are aware of their financial commitments in perpetuity regarding this project. For your information, the DEP has told me they will require a bond of Broomall's Lake for 50% of the cost to breach the dam and remediate their lake. And Broomall's Lake and the county will be required to pay for annual inspections, mowing of the lawn, and general maintenance of this dam. This bond, secured by Vermont Lake, will be reassessed and renewed every 10 years. Finally, the requirements of the stipulation will be recorded against the land of Vermont Lake and County Park in perpetuity. Fourth item they asked us to think about is the cost of the dam removal. We have acquired cost figures for this, and a fair estimate places the amount between about $750,000 and about $1.5 million to remove the dam and restore the stream. However, we are unable to pursue this option due to the stipulation. The fifth item they asked us to examine was examining the bridge costs. This is just a bridge. We got a range of quotes here. It's very rough. It's between $2.8 and $10 million. There's some long-term costs, and basically everyone who's advised us said owning a bridge is a really bad idea. If for some reason we could share this cost with the unanimous decision from Upper Providence, I would be certainly in favor of considering that. But according to my discussions with representatives from Upper Providence, they are very much willing to vote in favor of this, but not willing to put any money behind it. There was some question about the financial resources of Broomall's Lake and their ability going forward. Broomall's Lake entered this stipulation willingly, as did the borough, and it's not our role to verify their long-term financial stability. Another question was about sediment. I've also researched this issue. Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection has stated that sediment would not pose an issue in their permitting process. In addition, our engineers have verified it will not be an issue during the construction process. Our engineers have actually not our engineers, but the American Rivers has estimated that that lake will be filled with sediment in 10 to 15 years, making it more of a marsh, placing the impetus on the country club to spend, I guess, approximately between $250,000 and about $1 million to dredge and maintain that property. Final issue, the other issue, number 8, was about stormwater. I believe that any structure in this location will be designed to handle the stormwater load. There's no concerns there. I think we have a top-notch engineering team. They will handle that very well. Number 9 was recommending hiring a landscape architect. I'm fully in favor of that, although I do know, I don't feel very confident that we'll be able to do much with the dam face in the future. But I do believe that hiring a landscape architect would be a worthwhile cost. Number 10 was talking about looking at some university research project. I'm a firm supporter of protecting the watershed, but unfortunately, again, due to stipulation, there's nothing we can really do in this case. The wetlands downstream will be effectively traded for another area of wetlands in Pennsylvania State, and DEP is fully in support of that item. Number 11 talked about unforeseen consequences. I'm aware of decisions having consequences, and in my opinion, the decision before us today has some very serious consequences. I do want to make a quick correction. I think last month I said that we were not on the transportation improvement program for next year, that we need to get on that. I actually am incorrect. Mr. Smith corrected me after that meeting and stated we are in fact on the transportation improvement program, or the TIP, for 2013. Scheduled for construction, as I mentioned before, in 2015. Pennsylvania TIP is a list of projects renewed every 2 years, which receive state funding for construction. We're on the TIP for next year, and I have full intentions to move forward with the project in the best interest of the residents. This vote tonight, by the way, was prompted by a verbal request from PennDOT asking for our direction of the project. We met yesterday with representatives from PennDOT, along with other representatives from the Borough Manager Smith, and our engineer. The PennDOT representative made it clear to us, to him, an acceptable action for us to take today is to say we are negotiating among the 3 parties. In addition, he made it very clear that while we are competing with funding from other projects, that as soon as we bring them final construction plans, they would, and I quote, scramble to get the money to Beatty Borough. Finally, PennDOT stated clearly that the preference is for the least expensive option, which, as we all know, is dam removal and stream restoration. I believe it was time well spent to engage the public via the CAC in the first few months regarding this project, and I personally believe that we should take the time now to work towards the best solution for all parties. Let me just summarize a few facts so that everyone is clear. Both PennDOT and DEP, the funders of the project, expressed a preference to spend going with the lowest cost option. Beatty Borough residents showed the strongest support for dam removal and stream restoration and the strongest opposition to dam replacement in the CAC survey. Finally, the stipulation, I'll just repeat, does not solve the issue of ownership. I believe a solution exists which grants access for emergency vehicles across 3rd Street, retains a body of water for Vermont Lake Country Club members to enjoy, and minimizes the impact on the park. I would recommend this council take the time to pursue these options before communicating a direction in writing this evening. It is my belief that we have not done everything in our power to fight for what I believe is best for community residents. And do not be mistaken, there is no risk to Media Borough losing the funding tonight. Much weight will be placed on this vote tonight. In my opinion, we are starting down a very long, multi-year process. I hope we decide to take the first step, having looked into each and every option available to us, and working with the other parties to get the best outcome for everyone. Regardless of what our direction is, I promise to work towards greater transparency, work to make this project as aesthetically pleasing as possible, preserve Media's parks, and save Pennsylvania taxpayers as much money as possible. Thank you.
As I said before, this is not a sporting event. We do not root for sides here. We have a motion. We're going to take a vote on it. Does anyone else wish to speak on this matter?
I would, Mr. President.
Mr. Robinson.
Also would like to thank the Citizen Advisory Committee for the work in which they put forth for the 3rd Street project. This council sought out residents who wish to serve the borough, and we found an outstanding group of individuals who gave 100% commitment to the project. The CAC was ridiculed by some who did not even attend the meetings, some who made comments that the CAC was a one-sided fix. All of this being said while hiding behind the computer monitor. This council unanimously appointed all interested applicants to the CAC. However, some still feel that it was a fix, and the positions on the CAC were a one-sided one. For those who made those statements, I would publicly say that there was a chair at this table for anybody who wanted to serve on the CAC, and I wish those people would have come forward in January and offered their time, service, and commitment to the borough. It's also bothersome to me that people would even entertain the thought that somehow the borough and the U.S. Postal Service conspired to not deliver surveys to residents of this borough. I feel very comfortable in talking to our manager and talking to the U.S. Postal Service that every opportunity and ability to deliver these surveys were in fact done. Another area is it's very disturbing to me that at the very end of this process, a process that some of you referenced for 15, 16 years, that within weeks of a final decision, partisan politics reared its ugly head. With Middletown Township making a unanimous resolution, a township that has no roads that even marry up to the borough of Media. They reference a concern of public safety. It may be in their best interest if they start to look at having their own police department, and then instead of asking for the borough of Media to support when their police department is our Pennsylvania State Police Department. I also find it interesting that the Rose Tree Media School District, after 15 years of silence, came forth with a resolution. And I find it also more interesting that a member of Broomall's Lake Country Club knew of this resolution 10 days prior to the superintendent of schools and the solicitor for the Rose Tree Media School District. In Upper Providence Township, I met with their management in January and February and was told that on occasion over the course of 15 years, someone would ask the question regarding the bridge. I will put out there today, if Upper Providence is interested, I think we might be able to have a bridge, dam, roadway for sale if they're interested in buying it. In my opinion, these entities would be better served by taking care of their own issues and not worrying about the issues of Coralville and Media Borough. I would like to thank the county. The county has truly been outstanding with regards to this very serious matter. They've helped facilitate meetings with the borough, other citizen groups, and along with the club. The county has referenced since the get-go that this is a local issue, and I respect their position for that. And I do appreciate the help in which they've taken by at least working with and attempting to get the borough and Broomall's to meet. The Broomall's, limited members of Broomall's and limited members of this council did meet, and I think just for right now there was discussion, and it was probably more on the lines of we walked away agreeing that we would disagree with what our basic idea was. The CAC, in my opinion, painted a very clear picture to what the residents of the borough desired with regards to 3rd Street project. That was no dam and strong debate towards even the need for vehicular traffic. And after hours of meetings with our legal counsel, executive sessions of council, conversations and meetings with Senator Pileggi, the county, and Broomall's Lake Country Club, PennDOT, and other governmental entities in an attempt to bring resolution to the wishes of our residents, I am sorry to say that I believe that we must still remain bound to this stipulation. Stipulation that was based on the needs and the wants of the borough in 1998, and not the needs and the wants of our borough residents in the year 2012. A stipulation that permits a select few equity members of a private club to equal, if not greater control than the county or the borough with regards to allocation and expenditure of taxpayer dollars, and more important, to overall impact to the borough. A stipulation that mandates that public funds to build a dam that only benefits a private club while possibly creating environmental impact to our county park. A stipulation that mandates building of a dam for a lake that may be non-existent in the near future without significant intervention by the owners of the lake. A stipulation that mandates the building of a dam when Pennsylvania is the most active state in the nation with regards to decommissioning of dams. A stipulation that mandates a private club has equal decision-making with the county and the borough with regards to the building of a public highway. And a stipulation that mandates but failed to resolve ownership of the dam and poorly references future responsibility of the dam. This stipulation truly will go down in media borough history. However, again, not complying would subject the borough to full financial responsibility of building the dam. And I feel that we need to still meet with the stakeholders in hopes of resolution that is acceptable to all. However, if the stipulation remains, it is my hope that this council's final design for this project will have minimal impact on the park with regards to footprint and magnitude of the dam, and that this council takes all consideration with regards to road construction, traffic calming, and capability to minimize impact on the residential district, while all remaining compliant to the stipulation. It is important that we recognize that this is only the first inning of a 9-inning game. There are many steps, signatures, posting of bonds, clear and defined responsibilities that shall be required to meet in order to satisfy state and federal agencies. These requirements and responsibilities will be borne by the county and by the club, and by no means at this date have these requirements been satisfied. Once these entities see the actual responsibilities that they must take on, it is my hope that they will see the advantage to future discussion with the borough. As a member of this council, I will do that all I can do to assure that this borough has no responsibility and or liability to this new dam while still complying with the stipulation. I will continue to seek alternative relief to this existing stipulation. I still have hope that this stipulation can be amended and or rescinded to better reflect the needs and wants of the residents of the Borough of Media. Thank you. Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to amend the current motion.
May do so.
You need a second.
Well, I think you need to say what the amendment is.
Correct.
To that ask for a second.
You need to state the motion.
The motion would be adding on to Ms. Waborik's motion the following paragraph. Media Borough will continue to meet with and discuss alternatives to the stipulation and order dated May 26, 2011 with Broomall's Lake Country Club and the County of Delaware in order to fully explore reducing the costs of this project to PennDOT and Pennsylvania taxpayers, and to work towards resolution of the issue of ownership of the 3rd Street Dam.
Is there a second on the motion? Second. All right, the motion to amend has been made, it's been seconded. It takes precedence over the main motion, which is stated by Ms. for Horace. We must take a vote on that motion before we address any other business. So, is there any discussion on Mr. Robinson's motion to amend?
Yeah, I'd like to make a statement on that. As our discussions with PennDOT on Wednesday stated, we have every opportunity to take some time now to continue to investigate alternatives. As I've said, I believe that there are some alternatives, and I also believe that this council has not done everything in its power to get the best result for what the residents have expressed their preference to be. Therefore, I think it's a good idea, as part of this resolution, that we make a firm stand and say that we are willing and able to move forward in the best interests of the voters in this town.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to comment on the pending motion to amend?
I do.
Vice President Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really respect the fact that we all have very strong opinions. We may be more emotional than just strong. I think we may not all agree on certain aspects of the project. We certainly discussed it in so many hours for many, many months. I think one thing we do agree on is that it has definitely been a humongous challenge. Trying to do the best and represent all the residents. And I would like to just add that while not all residents may have responded to the surveys, there are other ways to gain residents' input besides the 500 responses to the survey, which was managed very well by the CAC. So I don't think we can discount the residents that contact us personally, call us at home, call us on the phone, meet us on the street, come to our doors because they did not complete a survey. So I would like to make sure that what we do reflects the whole of media and not based on a single subject of the survey. That was an integral part of getting a sense of what people are doing and what they would prefer. It was a very well organized group, but I have to say that there were elements that they were not privy to in developing the survey, which was brought up this evening, which was the financial aspect of some of the options presented. And so with that knowledge, it did become very difficult and many more moving parts to put into the picture. I would like to ask our solicitor if the amendment to the motion that Mr. Robinson has made has any impact on a timeline. And if Mr. Robinson is willing to put a timeline on the extension which he is talking about.
I'm not sure I understand the question. You're asking...
I think it's open. Well,
Isn't it open, an infinite amount of time to renegotiate? We've done 4.5 years to this point. I'm sure that no one wants to go down that road again, especially all three parties and the residents, where the increase in the cost of a project would increase again over those 5 years. So is there...
Well, as I heard the motion, I don't believe it had a time limit on it.
I think the question to Councilman Robinson is whether or not he is willing to add a time limitation to the amendment that he proposed.
I would say at this point, there would be no need to put a time limit. I think we recognize, and you were the one attending the meeting yesterday with PennDOT, there is opportunity and the ability to continue to explore other avenues. If it is the position of council that they just want to make a final decision tonight and call it a day, then, the motion has been made. I will be the first one to say that I think, at least my own opinion, is without a doubt, there's a definite time. Tonight, I don't have that time or date to add to a motion, but I too recognize that, we also are required to still meet PennDOT requirements that will be forthcoming. I feel just that we still have the ability. There's been a tremendous amount of new information that seems to keep coming out every day. And I'm just asking that we still provide that ability to explore instead of just simply saying, this is the direction.
All right, I believe that the response to Vice President Simpson's question is in the negative, because he's not willing to amend the motion to amend.
Can I ask the solicitor another question? Please. Mr. Scott, is there, with the original motion made, is there any reason that the parties cannot continue or start any communications or renegotiation discussions by making the original motion?
No, the original motion will not have the effect of stopping future discussions, if that's the desire.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on Councilman Robinson's motion to amend?
I have comments, general and specific to that. First of all, again, this has been an extraordinary journey and process, getting from where we started with this a few years ago to where we are now. And again, I want to thank the CAC and the leadership for all the input and all of those who have taken the time to weigh in on this very challenging topic. I guess in the end, I'm a pragmatist. I kind of want to get the job done. I'm an impatient person, and I can be a very patient person, but there's also a certain point where I believe action trumps further deliberation, even though I'm an academic, and sometimes my academic friends frown on that, but maybe I'm in the wrong profession. I'd like to just share with you some of the factors that have gone into my decision and my thought on this matter, and then address the two motions that are on the table. I've looked at this from a variety of perspectives, and they break into what I consider the ecological view, a legal view, and the question of use. Let me kind of look at those, or take those in turn. In terms of ecology, retention of the dam, the way this would be set up, there would be a barrier set up so that the water would not come out. There would be no disruption downstream, as I understand it from the engineer. Even as you're rebuilding it, you're not releasing that water. So essentially, there's minimal disruption to the current ecosystem. That's one factor. And if you believe that the current ecosystem has value both upstream and downstream, because there is an ecology that's been set up there over the past several years and decades, for that matter. One could argue it's good, one could argue that it's not so good. I'm not in a position to judge it either way. On the other hand, you could argue that it might be better if it were to actually breach it, and then what you do is you would swap one ecology for another. And again, I'm not in a position to say one is better than the other. Some people would argue. I think you could line up arguments one way or the other. But I do see the merits of certain the stream restoration projects that are taking place around the country. I think they do merit attention, and I think again, I'm not enough of an expert. I have listened to positions on both sides of the screen, but they are both considerations. Secondly, are the financial matters. Well, let me comment on those two. Obviously, if you retain the dam, you retain the current ecosystem. If you breach the dam, you substitute a different ecosystem. Secondly are the financial considerations. First of all, I think we have, as elected officials, have a fiduciary responsibility to this community to try to do the following. We want to minimize any future maintenance costs to this borough. And as was mentioned earlier, for example, by breaching and then putting in a bridge there poses the most financial risk. That is a very, very large undertaking, and it is extremely expensive. By a factor of 10 over any of the options. So I would be very concerned about that. Excuse me, there are maintenance costs as well as capital outlay costs. Capital outlay costs would be the second one, and putting in a bridge, a full two-lane bridge in there would certainly pose a huge capital burden on this community, and one which I think we should avoid. But in terms of maintenance costs, actually, in that regard, the least impact would be the option where we just breach and remove entirely, or we simply have that would probably be the next one. That would be the least maintenance cost, followed by the putting in just a pedestrian walkway over a dam. The other financial consideration, though, is the degree to which we can retain these funds. And obviously, I don't want us to lose the funds. I think regardless of what we have a gift here. We need to use it wisely. But I do believe that is in this community's best interest and the neighboring community's best interest to repair. I don't think it's anyone's best interest that you just have cinder blocks across a roadway down there. Either get rid of it or do something with it. I would like to see more. I'd like that to be a destination point for recreational activities, more recreational activities, as actually been in the past. The other financial concern is to what degree would we lose our matching funds? And the matching funds that come from the state are written from a pool of money that talks about dam rebuilding, not dam deconstruction, unfortunately. So it would actually take an act from the governor's office or from the governor himself to say it's okay to deconstruct a dam, not replace a dam, because that money was earmarked for dam replacement and reconstruction, not dam decommissioning. Again, these are just the realities that we're working with. Not to say that he couldn't choose to do that, but there is. I try to look at it in terms of business risk. Next are the legal considerations. Obviously, one consideration is to what extent can we dissolve the ownership issue? Well, if we blow up that dam, we dissolve that ownership issue. There is no question about that. But balancing that is that we, unfortunately or fortunately, the way you look at it, we have an agreement with two other parties. And I think engaging this community in future litigation is something, again, we have to take into consideration. So that's another legal, so minimizing the threat of an immediate lawsuit. The stipulation agreement is written in such a way that it uses the word dam, and it also uses the word vehicular traffic. So as a consequence, there are certain boundaries there that we have to take into account from a risk perspective. Finally, there's the use issues. I think opportunities for recreational activities are important in this overall scheme. I would like to see us try to link this town better with bicycle paths throughout the town, through our parks, and I think that would be a great place to put on that map. So I think you'll be seeing more of that in the future. I think, of course, we also want to be consistent with the public survey. I think the CIC did an excellent job giving the resources and time constraints that they have. But I will say this, just put my academic hat on here. And again, I'm not diminishing the work there. We had, most surveys are conducted 2 or 3 passes. So you send the mailing out 2 or 3 times. That's just conventional. We got a 17% response rate. And that is very, very good for one pass. But it is 17%, 83% non-response rate. There are some statistically non-significant issues here. But that aside, there are some clear indicators what a portion of this community would like, which would be to take the dam down and to put in a public, a pedestrian and a bicycle walkway there. And again, I want to honor that understanding as well in my thinking, and I think we have to honor that as well. And then finally, in terms of use, traffic flow and emergency management, being able to move vehicles through there is another consideration. You take all these pieces together, and there are ways that you can kind of mash all this together, and I'm not going to go into details in that, but I spent a lot of time thinking about all of these issues. This is a multiple, there are multiple problems, multiple issues here. If we were not bounded on one side by private property and county property on the other side, I think this would be a very clear. I would vote to just breach it and then restore it to kind of a natural setting. Unfortunately, we have certain constraints here, I think those constraints can't be. I wish they could be ignored. I appreciate the idea of trying to speak to the other parties. However, I think The other parties are well aware of the position of the town. They read the results of that survey. They know what a portion of this town would like in terms of that. And unless they are willing to change, maybe they're thinking about their business model and why the way it is structured, that stipulations agreement is structured, in my belief, are limited by that. Not to say that, within the next 30 days there could be a change. I think we still have the opportunity to continue those discussions, but I would not be in favor of including that in the motion, the amendment to the motion. I would be in favor of retaining the first motion. Thank you.
Good. Does anyone else wish to discuss the motion to amend?
I just have a couple of general comments in the spirit of everyone sharing kind of how they've gotten to the place where they are tonight. I've been clear from the very beginning of the 3rd Street discussions that I support vehicular traffic and repair of the dam. That opinion for me has never wavered, and I readily stand with my current and former council members who support the stipulation as well. First and foremost in my mind has always been the emergency services. Our emergency services have been and continue to be very clear. Free vehicular access is a no-brainer to them when it comes to the life-saving services that they provide to media and to our neighboring communities. And to me, that's argument enough. If that's not enough for some, we also need to remember that media is not a gated community. No resident of any community, especially a busy borough like ours, should ever expect to live on a street with no traffic. And our community is much broader than our borders, and I think that the clear wishes of Upper Providence Township Council, Middletown Township Council, and the Rose Tree Media School Board speak volumes. We also owe it to the many neighbors in the borough who have been inconvenienced in dealing with diverted traffic for 16 years. It's my belief that it's time to spread the flow of traffic, and I believe that opening 3rd Street will do this in an efficient, safe, and equitable manner. We negotiated and unanimously approved a stipulation agreement which was signed in good faith by all parties. It is not our right to violate any portion of that agreement. It is also not our right to dismiss one of the parties' rights or wishes because it's a private organization. If the other parties are expected to fulfill their commitment and maintain the dam in the future, we must respect their fair and reasonable expectations of us now as to the roadway's use. To me, that has never meant anything but vehicular traffic on that roadway. I do fully understand that there are differing opinions, and healthy debate is never wasted time. Prior and current councils have welcomed input and taken that feedback very, very seriously. But personally, in the last months, for me, it's been difficult to see many of our neighbors giving a great deal of energy and time exploring options that, in my mind, were never real legal possibilities. How or why anybody was ever encouraged or led to believe otherwise is a mystery to me, but I do truly sympathize with the disappointment that many will experience after so much effort. But after any difficult experience and any difficult journey, good things do come from it, and I do hope that one of the best things from this experience, which has been the formation of the Friends of Glen Providence Park, will continue to stay with us and keep up the wonderful work that they've accomplished on behalf of that property so far.
Thank you, Ms. Rowe. Does anyone else wish to offer any comments by way of discussion on Councilman Robinson's motion to amend?
I make my statement.
Why don't we deal with the motion to amend first? All right, so does anyone need to hear the motion to amend again? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to amend as stated by Councilman Robinson, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Those opposed, please say nay.
No.
Nay. The motion to amend fails by 5 votes.
Roll call, please. Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
Mrs. Rowe?
No.
Mrs. Simpson?
No.
Dr. Stein?
No.
Mrs. Rahord?
No.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
No.
Motion's defeated 5-2.
We are now back to the main motion, as articulated by Ms. Simpson. And I believe that we have heard from everyone with the exception of Ms. Rahorick up to this point. You wish to comment?
Well, I'm not going to reiterate what everyone else has said because it's just would be redundant. to use the eloquent phrase that Mr. Davidson used earlier about kicking the can down the road. Well, the can was kicked in 2000, and the can has now landed at our feet. And I believe that it is our duty as a council to pick that can up and move this project forward the best way that we can. It was alluded to earlier by a gentleman in the audience that if we each put up $500 per household, it would, per person in our household, it would make a difference to this. Well, sir, we've all put our money into the big pot as Pennsylvania taxpayers. And every time I hit a bump in the road or a pothole, it's my money I do not see being used to my advantage as a taxpayer. I have lived in this town and worked in this town for over 30 years. I own a business, I own commercial property, I own my home, I own investment property. I pay multiple amounts of taxes, not just in Media Borough, but also to the state. If I was so lucky to win the lottery, I would not be so benevolent to hand my money to someone else to fix something in their neighborhood. I want to see my money used in my own backyard. And this is my backyard. I do live on Lemon Street. It amazes me. You know, at one point I thought, you know, it's really selfish of me to sit there and think about how much traffic I've had to deal with that has been rerouted down Lemon Street because of 3rd Street, because I do live in the neighborhood of the courthouse, which I chose to live in that neighborhood. And then I thought, well, as a business owner that makes deliveries, again, it's selfish of me to want to take the shortest distance between point A and point B to make my deliveries. Now, I'm not emergency services or anything like that. However, it's time, it's gas, it's money. I've seen this project stall year after year after year. I've seen the numbers change on that sign at the bottom of the hill. I just want to see this move forward in the right direction, which is rebuilding what was there, rebuilding what was an existing structure. Everybody is so quick to point fingers at the country club, calling it a private entity, worrying about their financials. Nobody ever worries about the financials of the park or media's financials. We could all go broke in the next 10 years. It's not up to us to sit there and point fingers. Or point fingers at a private entity and constantly call them out as to what their responsibilities are. 3 parties entered into this agreement equally. We did not have one solicitor, we had 3 that entered into the stipulation agreement. To me, 3 lawyers can't all be wrong. One of them was Media Borough, was our subsequent, not our borough solicitor, but we had outside counsel. Was the county's solicitor that came and sat and wrote a portion of this, as well as the solicitor for Broomfield Country Club. So it's not, the onus was not just on us to sit down and put the stipulation agreement together. It was 3 different solicitors. They can all be wrong. They are all lawyers. Nothing personal to our president this evening, but they're well versed in this particular type of legal writing. So I stand here, I'm just a simple person, I'm a resident, business payer, taxpayer. I'm going to listen to these people because they're the ones that we pay good money to have them do this work for us and come up with the proper wording, the proper agreement, and everyone signed off on this. So for us to sit here and to take a back seat now, or backpedal and say that what the previous council did was wrong, by signing this agreement, we all felt at the time that this was the proper way for us to go. You know, we can take this back to 2000, to the council. Some council members might be sitting at this table, I don't know, that signed off on the original document, which I have yet to see. That would be one of the greatest things for me to see, the original document that was signed off by that council, which entered this agreement where we sit today. Somewhere along the line, PennDOT had to have a piece of paper with the signature of someone from Media Borough on it that started this whole project. We're just the lucky recipient of this document, which none of us, I believe, have ever seen, that have put us in this position today. So that said, I think it's time for us to just pick up the can and start working as diligent as we all have done in the last 4 months, 4 years, 15, 16 years, whatever it is, and to finally bring this project to a close. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, you wanted to say a few remarks?
Yes, I'm looking at the clock, and mine will be less than a minute. I became engaged in this in 1998. My job was to go to the Department of Transportation, start the ball rolling with funding. Here we are many years later, and in the past year, we were fortunate to have Stephanie and friends of the Glen Providence Park and the passion of Terry and Robin, which really made this council think through this issue. I have never seen a council more engaged in an issue. Each one of the 7 council people have been asking constant questions. They understand the issues, they've been engaged in it, but they wouldn't have been without, and I know I'm missing people when I say that, I'm just pointing out the 3 of you. And I thank you for causing this kind of debate among our council people on a very important issue to a lot of people in this room. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a few remarks and then I'll call the question. I'll try not to be repetitive of what others have said, although I suspect that at some point I am going to repeat. Let me just say that this has been a very, very, very hard decision. The mayor is correct. We've all worked very, very hard on this. There's been no predetermined outcome. Many of us were working, I suspect that all of us were working up until yesterday and even until this afternoon to try to figure out everything that we believe we need to know before we voted on this matter. I believe that all of us are concerned for what is the best for our community. Personally, I favor decommissioning the dam, and I favor putting in a pedestrian and bicycle bridge. That's me personally. If I were to have filled out the survey, I did not fill out the survey, my wife filled out the survey in our household, I would have voted for option 2B. But again, that is my personal preference. I am not sitting up here today to vote in favor of a personal preference. I am sitting up here today to vote, just like everybody else here, in my capacity as an elected official of this town. And my job is to vote for what is, on balance, the best for this community. That's how I approach this issue, and I expect that everybody else behind this desk approach that issue in that same way. What's best for this community on balance. Balancing is no easy feat, but we have tried. I think that all of us have listened to all of the information, and it has been wonderfully and fully articulated by all of you. I applaud all of you. You have taken your time voluntarily to come before us, many of you regularly. You have taken your time voluntarily, many of you, to work on this issue and to help educate us. It's wonderful to see that many people working together towards a goal that hopefully all of us can live with. There are 2 bits of information that I thought to be most compelling. The first is the stipulation. That is a stipulation that was signed back in May of last year that resolved, although some would dispute that point, the lawsuit that was filed back in December of 2006 in an attempt to try to come to a solution. The other part that I thought, the other piece that I thought was particularly compelling was the report of the Citizens Advisory Committee and the survey results. As to the stipulation, this council did not sign it, but we are bound by it. Unless the other 2 parties agree to modify it. As of the present day, there has not been any agreement by the other 2 parties to modify it. That document does not discuss ownership of the dam, which was the point, I would argue, the entire point of the lawsuit that was filed back in 2006. You can look from page 1 to page, I think that I forget how many pages there are, but to the end of it, and the word ownership does not appear anywhere. As was expressed by Peter Williamson, that was by design. Peter Williamson is a former member of council. It was by design. It's a compromise document. There is, as any compromise document has, there is some vagueness to that document. That vagueness can represent an opportunity. That vagueness can represent a risk. There is an opportunity, in my judgment, to attempt to use that document in a way that could get to a different result than what many expect that stipulation to require us to do. But with those attempts come risk. It is my judgment that were we to take that type of an opportunity, we would risk another lawsuit. We would risk going back to court. I don't know how long, how many years that would be, but the last time we went to court on this, it took 4 years. The estimates from our engineer is that with each passing year, the cost of this project increases 5%. And I am doubtful of the outcome of that lawsuit. I do not want to put this borough in a position where some more years down the line, we are still bound by that stipulation and we must pay more money. All of us have considered these things. There are opportunities, there are risks to the opportunities. But on balance, in my opinion, I think that the risks outweigh the opportunities. As to the CAC report, there is no majority as to any one of the opinions or one of the options under that CAC report. There is a plurality, but not a majority. And there's tension in those results. So on one hand, there is a preference to remove the dam by 63% over replacing the dam, which is 37%. On the other hand, there is a preference to retain auto traffic, 54%, over no auto traffic, 46%. It's a difficult, those results are difficult to harmonize unless you factor in that folks were thinking that if we put a bridge over there, then we would have vehicular traffic and we would need a dam. The problem, as alluded by others, is that that is by far the most expensive option. And it's not just a one-time deal. We received estimates in the range of 8 figures for a two-lane traffic, for a bridge that would carry two-lane vehicular traffic and sidewalks. That's a lot of money just up front. We would then own that bridge outright. It would be ours. With ownership will come maintenance costs. Those maintenance costs are startlingly high, and those will be borne entirely by media taxpayers. So if you were to assume, I'm just picking a number out of the hat, a $10 million figure for the cost of a bridge, every 20 years we would have to pay maintenance costs in the range of about 20 to 25% of that. $2 million to $2.5 million every 20 years. That's an awful lot to saddle our taxpayers in this town. But I still think that there is room for accommodation here. There is a potential for a solution that will meet many of the competing interests involved here. So when I looked at this, there is a risk management portion of this. How do we manage the risk that we're confronted with? And in my judgment, I think that the decision that, or the motion that has been voiced here today is on balance the best way to manage those risks. I am very mindful that Media is a very diverse town, and that diversity also is socioeconomic diversity. If we were to add significantly to our tax burden, I am fearful that we lose some of that diversity. For many people who live in this town on fixed incomes, I'm very mindful of that. I would like to move towards some type of an accommodation here. I think that's our role as elected officials. Our role is not to govern by survey results. Our role is to consider survey results, and then in the attempt to try to accommodate the results of those surveys, see if there's some type of a workable solution. I think that if we are going to be bound by a dam, that we can still try to make the best of that. And that is why I favor that we have pedestrian as well as vehicular access on top of that dam. I think one of the things that we learned from this survey is that folks in Media really do want to see whatever is there to promote recreational opportunities in our town. Although I personally favor a different option in my exercise as an elected official, I believe that the direction that has been that is in the pending motion is one that represents a reasonable, workable accommodation of all interests involved. I think that means that all of us have had the opportunity to occupy the microphone. Having heard all of these diverse opinions about this subject matter, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of, and I will read this again. All those in favor of the Borough of Media notifying the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation in writing on May 18, 2012, that's tomorrow, that the direction of the 3rd Street project is as follows. Consistent with the stipulation and order dated May 26, 2011, and entered on the docket in the matter of Borough of Media versus County of Delaware and the Media Swimming and Rowing Club, the existing 3rd Street dam is to be replaced with another dam structure that is both a vehicular component and a pedestrian component. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Nay. Does anyone wish the council to be polled? I apologize.
Yes, please.
Mr. David has requested that the council be polled on this vote. Mr. Smith?
Mr. Davidson?
No.
Mrs. Rowe?
Aye.
Mrs. Simpson?
Yes.
Dr. Stein?
Yes.
Mrs. Reborg?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
No.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-2.
Folks, we've been at this now for an hour and a half. As I promised at the top of the meeting, we will take a recess for roughly 5 minutes.
Are you going to stay?
For roughly 5 Meeting Borough Council legislative session of May 17, 2012 is back in session after a recess. We are now going to go through our usual agenda. We've already gone through public comment as to the 3rd Street project. Is there any public comment or does anyone wish to exercise the privilege of the floor about another matter? Okay, it appears as if we've exhausted that enthusiasm tonight. So let's move to the engineer's report. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I will summarize my report from April 26th for April 2012. We met the resident concerning some restoration works from a previous stormwater management job. We have prepared, which I believe is later on the agenda, a list of roads for resurfacing to the borough. And also in that, we've also revised those roads based on street opening permits that have been issued to Aqua and Pico for main replacement, which is ongoing within the borough. Traffic-wise, CMAC project, I am still in contact with Miller Brothers, and most recently this afternoon, we transmitted back to the borough responses to questions that Miller Brothers had posed, and there are about 8 comments from Miller Brothers, and out of the 8 comments, all the responses, really there's no responses from the Media Borough. Most of the responses are between Miller Brothers and PennDOT and Miller Brothers and their own subs who provide equipment for this project. Again, I sent this to Mr. Smith, and I know he will be forwarding this around to the council members, but that's the most updated on that. They have been out doing and finishing the punch list. I do expect 30 to 60 days that we could begin the 30-day process on some of the lights if they continue to be satisfactory in addressing the punch list. Miscellaneous, we have been working with FEMA, and it's my understanding that there's a very good potential the borough could be getting some funds for reimbursements for some damage done last year with the storms. We did one subdivision land development review for Kaczynski on 6th Street. And generally, that's it in a nutshell. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for the engineer? All right, let's move on then to the solicitor's report. Mr. Scott. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do not have a report.
Fantastic report.
It always he does.
Does anyone have any questions for the solicitor? Not that he is enthusiastic about receiving them.
Can I ask you about Third Street?
All right, let's then proceed to the mayor's report. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The police department handled a total of 695 complaints during the month of April. There were no burglaries during the month of April, and there were a total of 28 traffic details. I have two resolutions that I'd like to present tonight. The first is a proclamation, 2012-02, and it is for Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month, the month of May, and it basically says, whereas Pennsylvania's climate and scenery make motorcycle riding an attraction in the beautiful state of Pennsylvania, and riders consider our roadways to be some of the best for riding, and whereas motorcycles are increasingly used as regular means of transportation, and motorcycles are an efficient, energy-efficient vehicle that reduces fuel consumption, traffic, parking, and congestion. Whereas to prevent injuries and deaths, Pennsylvania roadways, motorcyclists and motors must be diligent in their efforts to share the road and ensure the safety of everyone. And whereas Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month raises the public awareness for a lifetime of safety motorcycle riding, we do proclaim May to be Motorcycle Awareness Month. The second resolution that I wanted to read while Marion Moran was here. Marion is the president of the Blue Star Mothers, the Philadelphia chapter, and it says, whereas, I'm going to give a little more detail here if it's all right, whereas the Blue Star Mothers of America was founded as a patriotic service organization on February 2nd, 1942 to unite mothers who had sons or daughters in the United States Armed Forces. And whereas the nonpartisan, non-sectarian, non-discriminatory, and nonprofit organization was chartered by the United States Congress in 1960, and whereas persons eligible for membership in the organization include mothers and stepmothers who have sons or daughters who are currently serving in the United States military or who are honorably discharged. And whereas the work of the Blue Star Mothers of America is increasingly important with the countless hundreds of thousands of United States Armed Forces men and women who served in Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and the Global War on Terrorism, with the continued deployments of the Pennsylvania National Guard and our active duty military and its reserve components, the Borough of Media recognizes May 2012 as Blue Star Mothers Month in Pennsylvania and in the Borough of Media. And Marion, you will get a proclamation, Jeff, I guess, sent in the next couple of days. So thank you for coming here today. And also I wanted to bring up that Saturday afternoon at Rose Creek Park, it'll start around 11, but the Walk for the Wounded is at 1:30. That it kicks off, and I will be over there, and I'm sure that you will be there. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add, but
I just want to add,
Please come to the microphone.
okay.
After all of that sitting in silence, this is your moment.
The Blue Star banner is very important. It could be only flown at a time of war. It is now flying at the government building and at the courthouse. It's important because there's a greater and greater feeling from the media and from the general public that we are not at war. The Spring Initiative has begun. Today I served a funeral. Lieutenant Moscow was killed last week in Afghanistan. This is a constant. I received about 7 or 8 killed in action and deaths that are from overseas. So it's very important to remember that our country's still at war. And I do thank you. Congressman Meehan is putting this resolution to Congress tomorrow. The state of Pennsylvania has already done it in Harrisburg. So thank you, media. I really appreciate it, and our children really appreciate it.
thank you, Marion. Thanks for all the work.
I think the thanks are on our side. Thank you very much.
My last item, and Bob Diamond and I are going to sort of say this jointly, we appreciate everyone's, everybody appreciates the the borough and everybody supporting the parade that we had 2 weeks ago, the Welcome Home Parade, but we must be reminded that there are other parades, and Memorial Day is an entirely different situation. And Bob, why don't you make some comments about the Memorial Day?
The one thing I do want to say, we always get a lot of people on State Street watching the parade. We always have a great parade. One thing I would urge people, and especially people at home and here, to tell your friends, please come up to the courthouse, because we have the parade, but then we have a nice ceremony up at the courthouse. For instance, Pencrest Band will be stopping in front of the courthouse, and they're going to do a medley, and it's Battle Hymn of the Republic, God Bless America, and the National Anthem. And that's just one of the items that goes on. The mayor and I will not give any boring speeches, at least not too long.
We're giving speeches, but they're not boring.
Anyway, yeah, Monday, May 28th is the parade, 10 o'clock it kicks off. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And that completes my report.
Does anyone have any questions for the mayor? All right then, we'll proceed to the council committee reports. We'll begin as is usual from my right to my left, or your left to your right, with Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, President Hall.
That's finance, personnel, and library.
Finance Committee met this Tuesday at 4 o'clock in Borough Council's conference room on the second floor, and determined to recommend paying the funds for the month of April. And the amounts of, from the general fund, $244,741.10, $2,547.54 from the Recreation Fund, no funds from the Liquid Fuels Fund, and $13,521.07 from the Capital Fund, for a grand total of $260,809.71 total. So the Finance Committee makes the informed motion, payment of bills for April.
Is there a second on the motion to pay the borough's bills for the month of April?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of paying the borough's bills for the month of April from the general, recreation, and capital funds, as outlined by Mr. Davidson, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
There's no items for personnel. Final issue is library, effectively the same as last month. They're still working the capital fund for the refresh project for the library. I would recommend residents check out mediauplibrary.com. And I'll just, because it's late tonight, I'll just keep it brief and move on. So that would conclude all my reports.
Are there any questions for Mr. Davidson?
Actually, I do have one. Will the treasurer, the actual treasurer, be giving us the mid-year report in June for July?
From the library, you're saying?
No, for the finance committee, I'm sorry.
I believe so, yes. Actually, Mr. Williams was not at the meeting last week, but I will make that request to him.
Okay, thank
as soon
you.
as I talk to him next.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Davidson? All right, we'll move on. Recreation and Shade Tree, Ms. Rowe.
Thank you. Just some offerings from the Recreation Committee this month. The spring tennis program is backed by popular demand. It's sponsored by the Recreation Board, obviously, and the program is taught again this year by Dan Sears. It's offered to both beginners and intermediates, and will be held on Mondays and Wednesdays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Beginning, actually, I guess again this Monday. So jump in if you'd like to. The cost is $50 for borough residents and $55 for out-of-borough residents. Contact the Recreation Office or look online for more information. The other item of interest for recreation is that there are still a few discounted Philadelphia Union tickets. Media Recreation Board has made those available to us on Saturday, June 16th at the PPL Soccer Stadium. The game is at 7. It is $20 per ticket, and it is first come, first serve. So if you'd like to join everybody out at the Union game that night, please have a look and sign up and get your tickets now. And otherwise, the continuing classes and activities that the Recreation Committee always offers are still in swing: Zumba, Pilates, yoga. There's something for everyone, so please have a look and enjoy the activities that are offered. That concludes my report.
Are there any questions for Ms. Rowe? Not hearing any, we will move through the agenda. Properties, economic development, fair trade and farmers market. Vice President Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The only information to share this evening, again, Fair Trade Live will be held this October. You'll start noticing some information and posters up, and check out the website. If you all recall, the first one was a huge success, very well organized, and really brought international flavor to town. Farmers Market, today was the second of this season. They have had fantastic response, both for vendors and the folks that are shopping. And I can tell you that right now, the fresh greens, strawberries, mushrooms, asparagus, homemade sausage, all organic. There's a ton of different things and items, 3 to 7 p.m. every Thursday in the parking lot adjacent to the Media Theater on Daly and State Street. The only other thing I'll mention off topic is June 15th is the Media 5-mile race. I'd just like to remind everyone about restricted parking, and we'll be getting everything out to the public on that.
Is the race still open?
No, we're already closed.
Excellent. Congratulations.
That concludes my report.
Are there any questions for Vice President Simpson? Hearing none, we'll move to Community Development and Media Arts Council. That is me. Whether you like it or not, I do have a couple of action items for tonight. I'll try to keep them brief. First is preliminary land development application, 24 West 6th Street. This is an application for a duplex on the south side of 6th Street between Olive and Jackson. It is one that is, this one that complies with the borough's code of law. They've requested some waivers, am I correct? And I'll rely upon you, Mr. Johnson, to explain what those waivers are. Okay, well, I look at you and you look at me. I believe they had something to do with drip lines and trees.
And depicting features off-site?
Correct.
Correct. The drip lines of trees were actually redone on the plan, so they're now in conformance.
Okay, good.
I found my notes here.
Excellent.
The physical features off-site were for 200 feet on the property. They've shown the physical features approximately 50 to 75 feet, which we believe is satisfactory, so we're recommending that waiver. The other thing is replacement of trees on the property. The property's so small with the replacement of trees, they'll be putting a lot more trees down and losing a lot of ground through there. I'm trying to, and the other one was the drip line, which I believe they have, again, met because they had redid the plan. They went out and field measured the drip lines and revised them on the plan.
All right, well, council has seen this land development, I think, several times. There was a peculiar procedural posture for this.
I'm going to interrupt you, I apologize.
Please.
It is a disturbance underneath the one tree. On the street, there's a 48-inch oak tree, which is part of the borough's responsibility. One of the requirements for them is to plant a tree in the front of the yard, and that is under the drip line. So that is actually a waiver, but I don't know if the tree or the shade commission has made a decision on the removal of that tree or not. But to keep them in compliance, we're recommending that the borough grant them the waiver for planting a tree underneath the tree.
All right, so it was a contingent waiver depending upon what we hear from Shade Tree.
Right.
Okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor of the preliminary land development application for 24 West 6th Street with the waiver as outlined by the borough engineer, I move that, that's my motion, I move that that we approve the preliminary land development application.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I'm sorry.
That's okay, you're on a roll.
Yeah, I'm on a roll, but I should get off the roll.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
I'm sorry. Any questions?
Clarity, at workshop, was there discussion that because of the nature of the property, that they could not put the trees on there that are required under the ordinance, but the property owner would commit to donating to for those trees that was to be followed up? Do you know if that ever was?
I didn't hear back from the staff on that yet, but I know that question was posed. This, I understand, is a preliminary motion.
But if we don't put the condition on now, we can't make it a condition of final, so.
I would suggest, I would make a motion to amend that
Add
to.
the condition would be my suggestion.
Sure, I'd be willing to amend my motion to add that condition.
Okay.
So will you please just clarify the amendment, please?
So the condition, it would be a motion to approve and grant the waivers of Mr. Johnston referenced, conditioned upon the applicant agreeing to either provide the trees that that they're required to plant but cannot plant on site, either to provide trees of that nature to the borough for planting elsewhere, or to give the borough a sum of money equivalent to that, so you can then purchase trees elsewhere.
I'll second your motion to amend.
Now, are there any other questions?
No, that's fine.
Motion's been made, the amended motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 7-0.
All right, the second item I have, it concerns a zoning hearing board application for 335 West 4th Street, on the north side of 4th Street between Orange and Lemon. This is currently a single-family home. The property has been purchased by a developer who wishes to put twins on the property. He needs some relief, zoning relief, in order to do that under our code. He has requested 4 variances, 1 for the lot width, 2 for side yard setbacks, 3 for lot coverage, and 4 for off-street parking. We have discussed this several times at workshop meetings. I do not favor voting to send our solicitor to oppose these various requests for these reasons. It is council's role to consider whether or not requested variances pose a risk to health, safety, and welfare of the community. It is not our role to determine whether or not an applicant has a hardship. That is for the zoning hearing board. Unless we conclude that there is a risk to health, safety, and general welfare, it is our role to permit the applicant to go forward to the zoning hearing board and make their case in front of that board as to whether or not they merit hardship. They merit a variance because of a hardship. So I do not favor spending borough funds to send the borough solicitor to oppose these variance requests. Rather, I favor letting the applicant go before zoning hearing board and make his case there.
So there is no motion required.
I am not requesting a motion.
Clarification, Mr. President?
Yes.
Or are you a council person right now? Mr. President.
Call me what you will.
You keep referencing the health, safety, and welfare. Can you show me where that is, or tell me where that is reflected? I mean, that is solely the responsibility of council to look at just the health, safety, and welfare when it regards a zoning issue?
So I can't point out to you where that lives in any code book. Perhaps Mr. Scott can. I'm unfamiliar with that.
Well, I think council can oppose it for any reason it wants. The way I heard your comments was that that's your feeling on what council's role is, but the fact of the matter is council, can oppose this for any reason they so choose, if that's the sentiment. So
it is my position that the zoning hearing board exists for a reason. We are not the zoning hearing board. We do not grant variances. We do not make determinations of hardships. There's a body of law governing that. That's not what we do as council. So it is on that basis that I say that I recommend that we not send our solicitor to oppose. We'll let the applicant make their case in front of the zoning hearing board.
And I would simply encourage members of council to take the time, effort, to pick up, read our zoning code, particularly section 311-10 with regards to standards of proof. Not going to be Debbie Downer twice in one night, so you know. But I do intend on attending the zoning hearing board either as a member of council and or a resident, because I do see issue with this. I think that this is a poor precedent that we're setting by saying that, you know, every meeting I attend, people sit there and talk about issues of parking, and here we are, we have an opportunity to provide off-street parking, and and we actually encourage the applicant to move forward with an application that we are encouraging him not to have any off-street parking. And I also think that there is, you know, significant, you know, issue that it is not the minimum impact that the applicant can bring forward, which is the burden of proof of the applicant. I think we all recognize that he is trying to, and you know, is trying to do what any smart business person does, is trying to maximize what he can maximize. I do believe that there are alternatives that could have been worked out that would have provided him the twins as well as off-street parking, and only losing one on-street parking space. But again, enough of being Debbie Downer for one night. I know exactly what the balance of council feels, so I will attend the zoning hearing board and reflect my opinion at that body.
I'm confident that our zoning hearing board will be able to do its job. Last motion, this is one that is not on my agenda, but it is occasioned by the first motion we made this evening concerning the 3rd Street project, and that is to authorize the borough solicitor to write a letter, or to draft a letter, to both Delaware County and the Brumos Lake Country Club, advising them of the direction that we have decided to take tonight with regard to the 3rd Street Dam project, and requesting that they advise us within 30 days whether or not whether they confirm or dispute that the direction that we have decided to take is consistent with the May 26, 2011 order and stipulation. And I make that in the form of a motion.
Second. The motion's been made and seconded to authorize the solicitor to draft a letter to the Borough Lake Country Club and Delaware County regarding this evening's motion regarding the 3rd Street project, requesting within 30 days any questions or concerns regarding the stipulation.
I have a question, Mr. Scott, I have a question. What legal bounding, I mean, do we have any legal right to bind these other parties to a 30-day limit to the declaration we make with PennDOT?
No, but if they were to subsequently assert that somehow this motion was not proper, I think you'd have a strong argument that they had stopped themselves from being able to argue that by not taking action when you ask them to take action. So you could achieve this. You could prevail on the argument that they had waived their rights to object, but they hadn't done so time.
And how much legal weight does that carry? I mean, so 2 years down the road, they say we never approved this.
And we
Would they
say,
win that?
and we'd say, and the borough would say, we sent you written notice of it. We asked you to inform us if you disputed it, and you did not. And it puts the borough in a stronger position to prevail if there's a subsequent dispute.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
I mean, is there a rationale for why this wasn't discussed in umpteen executive sessions that we've had, and it's dropped on us tonight?
I guess the rationale, well, first of all, we did discuss it before tonight's meeting. And the rationale is that we didn't have this motion, we didn't pass the motion until today. We didn't pass the motion concerning the 3rd Street project until today. That's why it's being made now.
Transparency.
Any other questions or comments for President Wall? I'll call the vote, please. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion passes.
I have nothing further for this evening. All right, so let's move on. Technology, Media Business Authority, and Environmental Advisory Council. Dr. Stein.
Okay, thank you. First item is to authorize the solicitor to draft and advertise an amendment to the zoning code pertaining to backstreet signage. Now, this is motivated primarily for our first responders. Right now, many communities have signage on their back streets so that if there is a fire, if there is an emergency of some sort, a medical emergency, that oftentimes they will come in through the back way. And as it stands now, it's very hard to identify what building and what the address is of the building that you're going into. So this is to authorize the solicitor to draft and advertise an amendment to the zoning code to include some sort of identifying information about the address and so on the backs of our buildings along, say, Jasper and Baker Streets and so on. Secondarily, I think it will be useful to pedestrian shoppers, etc., so to know. Some of the businesses in town are actually kind of beautifying their back sides. They realize that they have frontage on both sides, and that they're actually utilizing that to a greater extent. So I think it's consistent and helpful in that. But the primary is, I think it helps with our first responders. Nothing like breaking down the wrong door, when you need to get somewhere in a short time. So I'm sure some of our first responders would agree with that. I see some nods in the background. So that is, does that have to be in the form of a motion?
It does.
That is the motion, to authorize the solicitor to draft and advertise an amendment to the zoning code pertaining to backstreet signage.
Is there a second? There is a second on the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing no call for discussion, call the question. All those in favor of authorizing our solicitor to draft and advertise an amendment to the zoning code pertaining to back street signage, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, great. The next item pertains to an IT proposal, and I would like to just I'll do this quickly. Over the past several months, we have talked about formalizing an agreement on the selection of a computer and network administrator for the borough. This is a person who makes sure that the PCs are running properly, that the servers are running properly, that the hardware and the software is in compliance, and so on and so forth. It's an essential kind of back-end function for the borough staff here, and to make sure that the biggest concern is to minimize downtime. We have had some disasters in the past year. We had our police server go down at an inopportune time. I've been notified that the accounting of our accountant that his computer is on quote unquote its last legs. So there is a certain need to move this on. So what we did is we advertised for an RFP that was authorized by council. We received numerous inquiries, and then finally 8 written proposals. And they're fairly short and late, the proposals, just so you understand. And they're a little bit more technical in nature, but the primary things, of course, are hourly rates and so on. The service agreements range from about $100 to $150 an hour. If you establish a service contract of some sort where you buy a block of hours, usually it's in the range of about 20 plus hours. Then it drops the price down to, let's say, $75 to $100 an hour, where you're currently paying, as of I believe the first of the year, $150 an hour for our current network and computer administrator. It's always a good time when those rates just recently went up, and it's always good, I think, prudent fiscally to make sure that we're getting the best price for the borough on that. In our selection process, and this includes the IT committee, myself, and Ken Davidson, We, looked at issues around price, discounting, flexibility of the service plan, number of people in the firm, years of experience and their knowledge, virus protection, platform expertise, remote access and monitoring capabilities, experience with multiple municipal clients, distance to the borough, and of course references. Based on that, we have come up with a recommendation for a provider. We think we've negotiated a good rate for that with them, and this vendor currently serves the towns of Springfield and Middletown, which have very similar needs to ours. So with that, and the rate is considerably less than what we're paying now. It actually could be as much as half of what we'd be paying now on an hourly basis. So the next step is to make an motion to go into agreement with this vendor. Now, although we probably have the votes to vote on it tonight, I also recognize that some of these, the council members have not had a chance to review all the materials. I'm trying to balance that need with the need of our accountant. This machine may be breaking soon, and other machines are a little bit suspect. So rather than wait a month, I'm suggesting that we make a motion to enter into agreement pending final approval by our solicitor and pending of the contract and pending any major concerns that any council members would have. And I would suggest that, in other words, let's say we allow a week for that feedback to come in. If the solicitor cannot resolve those conflicts, or if major objections are raised, then I would recommend that we then discuss those in workshop in a few weeks. But I'm just trying to be a little bit pragmatic and make sure that our staff has the support it needs in a timely fashion. So, and we just knowing that we actually do have a machine that's on its way down as we speak. So. If that is acceptable to this council, I'd like to make a motion. We did interview 5 vendors. The vendor that we selected based on that, based on the references, the evaluations, the interviews, and in consultation with borough staff, was Computer and Network Paramedics located in Springfield, PA. I would like to make a motion to enter an agreement with them contingent upon final approval by the solicitor and any, making sure there are no objections by council members. They may not have had an opportunity to review the materials so far.
But if we do, then what happens?
Well, if you have, what I'd ask you to do is give me comments by a week from today, which is Thursday. And if you do have any that I feel I need to bring back to council, which is revisited workshop, if there are things that I think are appropriate that are non-controversial, I'd make the changes and shoot it off to the vendor.
But we're selecting a vendor that, I was thinking that we might be able to just make a motion to allow the IT department to make the selection after council. To be candid, we didn't get this till 5 o'clock tonight.
Well, the final.
So that at least we can have an opportunity to see who these players are.
Right.
And then, in a week from now, allow the IT department to make that recommendation, and at June's council meeting, council ratify the decision of the IT committee, but it would still at least give all members of council an opportunity to take a look into who these entities truly are, but hopefully won't slow things down that we're not cutting checks. I'm not sure what you're asking us to make a motion to approve something that I have not even taken
Right,
any look
I
at.
understand, and I understand.
Bob, is there there's a solution here that we can come up with where we can hire these guys short-term but give veto power to the council next month if they need it?
If they're willing to do so, yes. If they're willing to come in and do some work on on the fly until next month, that's fine.
That would be.
I'm good with that.
That's acceptable. And then, that's fine with me.
Yeah, why don't we do that? List them as an
We have a motion to hire someone on the fly.
That's a,
There you go.
Right.
or is there any other way to temporarily?
You're looking for a head
Actually, I guess what Monica suggests is we hire them for 1 month and then we'll ratify it next month.
Yes,
That sound fair?
yeah.
Okay, I think
That's good.
I mean,
I
if
think
the
that-
IT department is comfortable
I
with
mean, I'll be
that.
happy to comment on the quality of this vendor. I
Please.
interviewed all, I mean, I'll just make a quick statement. I interviewed all, what, I'm an IT guy, this is what I do for a living. I build networking servers, I have a half rack down in network, with about 20 different machines on it all wired together, and I've done all this stuff, and so I understand what these guys are doing. I interviewed, I guess we had 5 different candidates, 3 were firms, 2 were sort of individuals. I would say of the 3 firms, 2 were actually exceptionally well qualified to handle the borough's needs. In this particular firm, what I personally appreciated about them was any issue I asked them about in terms of how they would handle sort of technical issues within the borough, in terms of setting up, say, Wi-Fi or managing audits, security software, things like that. They had pretty much the correct answers in my opinion in terms of what I asked. And Eric took a more, I think, a different approach, which is to sort of rank everyone on all these criteria. And I think both of those on balance came up with these guys as sort of top of our list. And just to add to that, Mr. Smith did interview other municipalities. We did not actually check references, but he knew folks that actually worked with these folks. And they essentially gave extremely, and I don't want to speak on behalf of them, but they gave glowing recommendations of this particular firm. So I feel very confident going forward with this. It's a good decision, and to be honest, it's an at-will contract. We can terminate at any time. So if anyone actually, we could just go forward with this tonight. If anyone did have an issue with this group for whatever reason that they deemed necessary, it would be, I would certainly entertain their comments next month, and then to, have a vote to essentially find a different vendor. Again, there's 2 that we could go.
It's an at-will contract.
Yes, there's.
Let me clarify. The written contract they provided was an annual contract, which allowed them out on 15 days' notice, but not the borough. So that's why the motion that's on the floor now, which is
higher than for a month.
Right, and then next month you can decide whether to do it.
That's what we need to discuss.
No, we're not doing, Bob knows that.
But we're not doing that, right?
No, we're not doing that. No.
Right, the motion on the floor is to just hire them for the
For
month.
1 month.
Okay.
And then we will negotiate the contract, and then we will ratify that annual contract for next month.
Perfect.
All
Is
right.
that okay? Is that acceptable to them?
I'll second that motion. I'll let me be the first one. I'll second it.
All right, very good.
I'm more comfortable.
All
We
right,
just want to
so
get the stuff.
Just so we have the opportunity to.
Right.
we have a motion to hire computer and network paramedics.
Paramedics.
Paramedics. To provide IT services to the borough for 1 month. It's been seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay.
Great.
The ayes have it.
Thank you for that compromise there, folks, and we will try to get stuff to you sooner. It's just we got caught in the middle. I also want to just also, if we can, and direct the borough manager to send a note of appreciation to Frank Fallon. Frank Fallon actually has supported the borough over the years on more of an ad hoc basis, and we feel that our, his prices have gone up, and we feel that our needs have changed, but we also want to recognize that he has supported the borough and helped us through more than 15 years of service. So, Mr. Smith, can we send a note of appreciation to Mr. Fallon?
Mr. Smith has indicated yes, we can. So we will.
Okay. All right, very good. Just real quickly, nothing major to report about EAC. Just a couple things. MBA across EAC did set up a task force to look into trash and recycling, especially in the downtown area. I've got 2 representatives, one from each, from the MBA and from the EAC. So we'll try to, put together our first meeting on that. I just received that as of the MBA's last meeting just a week ago. I also want to say, we've had our second dining on the stars, and again, successful, but with some tweaking. I want to commend the mayor for taking some leadership on establishing a post kind of processing lessons learned kind of thing after each one of our meetings. We didn't have that in the past. I mean, the fire lanes were beautiful that night, but we had some other issues that need to be addressed. So there is a meeting scheduled for Monday to talk about that, and just again continue to kind of in a learning orientation to make Dining on the Stars better and better. And those things will also go into the manual that I've developed for use in future years. I think, I'm just gonna stop there because it's been a long night, and,
I suspected that most would consider that to be a good call. But thank you very much. Any questions for Dr. Stein?
Just a reminder, the Blue Stroll, June 6th.
Oh, thank you. I knew there'd be something I forget. Blue Stroll, June 6th. This is a great event. Media can be proud of the kind of talent that it attracts, that's organized, and it's one of our signature events. So again, spread the word, and those of you who are in the audience at home, please come to the Media Blues event. Lots of fun.
All right, I guess we'll pass the baton. Mr. Borg, Health and Historic.
I have nothing under historic for this evening. All I have is a adoption of an ordinance under health. And do you really want me to read 3 pages, or can I just name section by section, just the section?
Read it.
Do I have to?
Let's
read
ask
it?
our
I can
solicitor.
give you a quick summary, that's all you need. This is an ordinance that will adopt the state's food code for restaurant and food inspections, which is mandated. Pennsylvania adopted a statewide food code, and it supersedes local food codes.
Okay.
So it's a motion to do what we gotta do.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2012, the end. Is that it?
That I think that works tonight. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
All I have is 20, ordinance.
I just have a brief question. As the
I'm
solicitor,
sorry, ordinance number 2012-292. 1092. Yeah, I'm thinking.
Okay, there's a motion to adopt ordinance number 1092 has been seconded. We have a question from Mr. Davidson.
all right, I guess, yeah, as the solicitor, does this affect, I just want to just go on the record, does this affect any issues with the farmer's market and or the street fairs within town, the food fest, things like that?
It does apply to the farmer's market. I don't recall as to one-day events. I can't recall if there's regulations applicable to them or not, but there is to the farmer's market. The farmer's
Well,
market.
there is something under seasonal outdoor cafe dining, which does kind of give the timeline of May to September, which would fall under well, it is, under dining room stars if you get one day.
Well, the dining room that starts, those establishments are all inspected. You're talking about things like Super Sunday and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah, I don't recall. I don't recall whether this will impact them or not. I do not believe currently that the borough inspects those vendors, and I do not know that this will change that.
I know that historically the state really doesn't look at single-day events. You know, many institutions I work with are, have county fairs and things of that nature. If it's a one-day event, there's not an issue. It's when it becomes the 2, 3, and 4-day events that the quote-unquote health issues start to crop up, so.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
The main point is this essentially just adopts the state codes for our health, local codes.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, now the same inspector, but the borough's inspector will now inspect for compliance with the state code, not with what's in the ordinance book now.
Yeah.
And that inspector currently inspects restaurants, supermarkets, and the farmer market vendors, and will continue to do so.
All right, we've had a motion that's been seconded. Is there a further question on the motion?
Actually, I do. Is this ordinance going to be forwarded to all restaurants and vendors in the farmer's market?
No.
After its adoption?
No, I mean, when the inspector goes through, he's just going to be working on the checklist that's the state's checklist instead of what was in the borough's code book. And I don't even know if it's materially different, but it is what is now required.
But if anyone needs to reference it, it would be on the borough website?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor of adopting ordinance number 1092, concerning health ordinance amendment, which basically means that we're following state law with regard to health, with regard to food safety, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
That's all I have for this evening.
Are there any questions for Mr. Rourke? Okay, we'll move on to Public Safety, Public Works, Infrastructure, Fire and Third Street Project Committee, Mr. Robinson.
I am pleased to say that Chief Gibson is here tonight. He will be able to give our fire report briefly. And Chief, I truly appreciate you, and I apologize. Your name, sir?
Charles Williamson.
Charles Williamson. Lieutenant. We're both kind enough to come here at 8 o'clock and are still here at 10:30 or whatever time it is. Chief, the microphone's yours.
We had 33 calls last month. I'm not going to do the breakout, take forever. Average 7 firefighters per call. And I'd like to thank Dr. Stein for my walkthrough, the dining on the stars last night. We had one minor glitch, talked to the person involved, he took care of it right away. But I was able to talk to Zubair, and I have his phone number now, so any other things we might come up with, he says give him a call and he can straighten it out as a fly. So it seems like everything's going to work out good this year.
Great, we're glad you're happy, thank you.
Thank you.
As I'm going to say, every month, as long as I'm a member of, or chairing the public safety, we're always looking for volunteers, both firefighters and or administration, so if anyone who's a borough resident, not even a borough resident, can come forward and serve the Media Borough Fire Company. Moving on to the agenda, 3rd Street project. Oh, that's right, we did that one already. 2012 road resurfacing. Is this required to be in form of a motion, Mr. Solicitor? The work?
What is the plan to adopt,
The workload?
what's the intent, to have a scope of work?
Yes,
approved?
paving project.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd make a motion that for the proposed 2012 Media Borough paving project as follows. And I do apologize. 2nd Street, from Monroe to Edgemont, total cost $22,078. Jasper Street, Olive to Veteran Square, $12,359. Pearl Street, Orange to Lemon, $16,886. Baker Street, Olive Street, 80 feet west, $5,000. Baker Street from Plum Street to Jackson Street, $13,912. Olive Street, Baldwin Pike to Franklin Street, $8,744. Youthway, Monroe to Providence, $5,285. 8th Street from Olive Street to Jackson Street, $23,950. Lemon Street from the Borough line to 5th Street, $23,950. Gailey Street to State Street, $15,610. That is in the form of a motion. I would entertain a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I just want to bring up that last year we did the roads resurfacing program. Actually, it was during the election, actually, and I remember hearing a lot of residents complaining that they were not notified that their street was going to get paved. So I don't know if we want to amend the motion or what have you, but I would like to see council to entertain the concept of using the Borough Connect system to notify each of these residents on the street that their street will be paved prior to, and I guess as much notification as needed in terms of equipment and things like that. So I will, I guess I'll make that in the form of an amendment.
I'd second.
Well, okay, well,
If that's,
okay. The easiest way is whether, is if the maker will accept the amendment.
I have no issue.
Okay, so
I
we don't need.
I think it's apples and oranges, because this is really nothing more than we're expending X dollars to pave X streets. I think how we notify the residents could be discussed and decided on at a later date, but once again, I'm not going to be Debbie Downer for the 3rd time tonight, so if that's what you guys want, let's go for it.
Well, a lot of
I mean,
these
you know I'm
streets are
anti-local.
Mr. Robinson, I just want to point out one thing. We did pull the A Street off because that is Aqua and Pico replacing utility lines. There's no sense putting asphalt down when it's going to be ripped up or damaged. So dealing with Public Works Director, we removed that from the list for this year.
Okay, perfect. Take 32,000 off that. So, I mean, I prefer keeping it pure and just having it be the streets repaving project, and we can entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll rescind my amendment.
All right, so I don't know about anybody else, but I'm dizzy. Well,
It's a motion to approve paving all the streets except for the 8th Street one.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's a motion to approve the 2012 Media Borough paving project without number 8, which is referencing 8th Street, starting from Olive Street to Jackson Street.
All right, there's been a motion. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, good. Before I call the question, let me ask Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, is this schedule available on the Borough website?
Oops, as soon as it's approved, it sure will be.
Okay.
Even the sign's tired.
Yeah. So for folks at home, if you wish to know what the repavement schedule is, it will shortly be up on the Borough website. You can take a look at it there. Any other call for discussion on the motion? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the 2012 road resurfacing program as outlined by Councilman Robinson, with the exception of number 8, which was 8th Street between Jefferson, Jackson, and Olive, please say aye.
Aye. Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes.
Okay, following on the agenda is mass gathering permit for Nativity BBM School. Date requested is May 24th, 2012. I'm not going to get into particulars tonight. I make a motion that we approve the mass gathering permit as submitted.
Second.
Any discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the mass gathering permit for Nativity BBM's Race for the Education, Thursday, May 24th, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Mass gathering permit request for Town Talk newspapers for the event named Fall Super Sunday, date September 16th, rain date September 23rd. Setup 7 a.m., start time 9 p.m., stop time 4 p.m., breakdown 5:30 p.m. Motion to approve the mass gathering permit for Town Talk newspaper.
Second.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing any call for a discussion or comment? All those in favor of the mass gathering permit application for a Fall Super Sunday, as outlined by Councilman Robinson, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay.
All
Motion
right.
passes.
Mass gathering permit application for the Community Arts Center. It is called their 10th Annual Fine Arts Craft Festival. Date September 22nd, 2012. Setup time 6 a.m. Start time 10 p.m. Stop time 6 p.m. Ooh, they can break down quick. And breakdown is over at 6 p.m. Location is State Street. Motion to approve the mass gathering permit for the Community Arts Center as submitted.
Second.
All right, we have a motion that's been seconded. Any call for discussion on the motion? Hearing, we do.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Are they going from the road to Orange Street or beyond Orange Street? That is the sign.
The application references State Street.
Media or Chicago?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, this is the one thing which I've stated, I mean, I've only done this for 3 months, but I have frowned on all the time, but there's never the complete map. The application references State Street.
Perhaps.
If this council so desires, we can reject it, table it until next month. The event is not until September.
Perhaps Mr. Smith can give us some guidance.
Yes, and I have asked Hubert to be a little bit more detailed on the application.
Thank you.
He will do that going forward. However, he did mention that at State Street, it's west of Church Street to Orange Street, and Veteran Square, Jasper to Bates.
So it's west of Orange?
West of-
So it's crossing Orange Street?
No,
Just
so
two.
West of Church Street.
west of Church Street
Okay.
to Orange Street, and then Veteran Square from Jasper to Bates.
Oh, okay.
And he's assured me he'll be more detailed going forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
That's my motion.
we still have a second to the motion?
Yes.
Okay, good. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of granting the mass gathering permit application for the Community Arts Center's 10th Annual Fine Arts and Crafts Festival as outlined by Councilman Robinson, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, last on the list, and it was not discussed at workshop, it has just been brought to the mayor's attention and my attention. As you all know, we provide permits for canvassing and soliciting under our borough code. Under our borough code, we are also permitted to rescind said application and or permit.
There is a company that, in which we have had some issues with that have been reported to the Media Police Department, and I would make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2012-2, whereas the Borough of Media requires canvassers. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Bottom line is, it is the right of the borough. We have a letter from a police officer regarding several instances. To be short, it's, so we don't say too much and get ourselves in trouble. I make a motion that we rescind the application permit number 368 that was issued to Commerce Energy be revoked effectively immediately.
Second.
I appreciate that discussion. Any discussion on the motion? All righty then, all those in favor of Resolution 2012-02, revocation of solicitor's permit, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, the motion passes. Mr. Robinson, anything else on your agenda?
I am done, sir.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Robinson? All righty. And may it not be a Debbie Downer day next June. All right, we have public comment and privilege of the floor. Does anyone wish to come forward and speak to council now? All righty, at 11:15, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All righty, we are adjourned.
Thanks for coming.